She told her friends I was just temporary. I quietly moved out that night. Sometimes the most devastating truths come from conversations you were never meant to hear. I was Blake, a 29-year-old custom woodworking artisan living in Portland, and I thought I understood my relationship with Samantha after 2 years together. I had returned to our shared apartment earlier than expected that Thursday evening, my workshop project finishing ahead of schedule, when I heard voices from the living room where Samantha was hosting her monthly book club meeting. I paused in the hallway, not wanting to interrupt their discussion, when I heard my name mentioned in a tone that made my stomach drop. Samantha was explaining to her friends that our relationship was essentially a placeholder arrangement while she figured out her actual future plans, describing me as someone she was keeping around until she found a partner with better financial prospects and social status who could provide the lifestyle she truly wanted. She told them she appreciated that I was stable and reliable, but I lacked the ambition and earning potential she needed for her long-term goals, and she was actively considering her options for upgrading to someone more suitable for marriage and family planning. The casual way she discussed using me as a temporary comfort while searching for something better felt like being punched in the chest, especially since we had spent the previous weekend discussing plans to make our living arrangement permanent and I had been secretly crafting an engagement ring in my workshop for the past 3 months. I listened to her friends asking questions about timeline and her strategies for transitioning away from me, and Monica, the book club leader, even offered to introduce her to some successful men from her interior design business network who might be better matches for someone with Samantha's aspirations and social climbing goals. I heard Samantha describe how she needed someone who could take her to high-end restaurants regularly, afford vacations to Europe, and eventually provide her with the kind of house and lifestyle that would impress her pharmaceutical sales colleagues and their wealthy clients. She mentioned that while I was sweet and talented with my hands, working with wood was hardly a prestigious career path that would elevate her social status or provide the financial security she required for her future family plans. Her friends agreed that she deserved better than someone who worked with his hands for a living, suggesting she should focus on professionals like doctors, lawyers, or business executives who could properly provide for her needs and social expectations. The conversation continued with Samantha explaining that she had been subtly networking at medical conferences and pharmaceutical events, making connections with successful men who could offer her the lifestyle upgrade she was seeking while maintaining her current comfortable situation with me as a safety net. I realized that every time she had encouraged me to attend her work events, she had been essentially showcasing herself as available to potential suitors while using me as social cover to appear stable and desirable. The ring I had been carefully designing and crafting in my shop, with its reclaimed wood band and ethically sourced stone, suddenly felt like a symbol of my complete misunderstanding of our relationship dynamics and her actual intentions for our future together. I stood frozen in that hallway for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, processing the complete destruction of everything I believed about our relationship and my place in Samantha's life. That night, after the book club members left and Samantha went to bed, I quietly packed my essential belongings and tools, loaded them into my truck, and drove back to the small studio apartment above my woodworking shop that I had kept as my workspace and emergency retreat. I left only a brief, handwritten note on the kitchen counter telling her I was giving her the space she apparently needed to figure out her future, without mentioning what I had overheard because I wanted to protect her reputation even though she had shattered my trust and my heart completely. I settled back into my studio apartment above the workshop, deliberately choosing not to tell anyone about what I had overheard because exposing Samantha's calculated manipulation would have reflected poorly on her reputation and professional standing. I believed that maintaining dignity meant protecting the person who had hurt me, even though every instinct told me to warn others about her true nature and the way she viewed relationships as transactional opportunities rather than emotional partnerships. Samantha initially assumed my sudden departure was just another one of my occasional moods, texting me casually about when I would be coming home and asking me to pick up groceries on my way back, as if nothing significant had happened between us. She continued posting couple photos on her social media accounts, including old pictures of us at various events, and told her pharmaceutical sales colleagues that I was simply working through some personal issues related to my business and would return once I sorted everything out. Her friend group, particularly Monica and the other book club members, began asking increasingly pointed questions about my whereabouts when Samantha couldn't provide coherent explanations about why I had disappeared so suddenly without any prior discussion or argument. The more they pressed for details about our relationship status, the more Samantha's stories began to contradict each other, revealing inconsistencies that made her friends realize she may have been dishonest about the stability and seriousness of our partnership all along. Monica, who had initially offered to introduce Samantha to successful men from her network, started questioning whether Samantha had been misleading everyone about the true nature of our relationship and whether her sudden single status was connected to some deception or manipulation on her part. I watched from a distance as Samantha struggled to maintain her narrative while dealing with the practical reality that I had completely removed myself from her life, taking with me not only my emotional support but also my financial contributions to our shared living expenses and lifestyle. Her pharmaceutical sales colleagues, who had grown accustomed to seeing us together at medical conferences and company events, began commenting on my absence and expressing concern about what had happened to the stable, reliable partner they had come to know and respect. The questions from her professional network became increasingly uncomfortable for Samantha as she realized that my sudden disappearance was creating doubts about her judgment, reliability, and honesty among people who were important to her career advancement. She attempted to control the narrative by suggesting that I had become too clingy and possessive, requiring space to work on my commitment issues, but her explanations sounded rehearsed and unconvincing to people who had observed our interactions and seen no evidence of such problems. The irony was not lost on me that while Samantha had planned to eventually discard me for someone better, my immediate departure had left her scrambling to explain a situation she had never intended to handle, forcing her to confront the consequences of treating relationships like business transactions where people could be easily replaced when more attractive options became available. Monica's book club members, who had witnessed Samantha's casual discussion about replacing me, began to feel uncomfortable with her manipulative approach to relationships and started distancing themselves from someone they now viewed as calculating and dishonest about fundamental aspects of her personal life. I learned through mutual acquaintances that several of her friends had begun questioning other aspects of Samantha's character, wondering what else she might have been dishonest about and whether they could trust someone who would maintain a relationship under false pretenses while actively seeking to upgrade her partner. The pharmaceutical sales community was relatively small and tight-knit, and Samantha's inability to provide a consistent explanation for my disappearance began affecting her professional relationships as colleagues questioned her stability and judgment. Her attempts to maintain the appearance of our relationship through social media while simultaneously being unable to explain my absence created a cognitive dissonance that made people uncomfortable and suspicious about her truthfulness in both personal and professional contexts. The professional consequences for Samantha intensified when her pharmaceutical clients, many of whom had developed genuine fondness for me through her social media presence and company events, began asking uncomfortable questions about my sudden absence from her life. I had attended numerous medical conferences and pharmaceutical industry gatherings with her over the past 2 years, building authentic relationships with doctors, clinic managers, and healthcare administrators who appreciated my genuine interest in their work and my ability to engage in meaningful conversations about topics beyond business networking. These healthcare professionals had come to associate Samantha with stability and reliability partly because of my consistent presence and grounded personality, viewing our relationship as evidence of her character and judgment in personal matters that translated to trust in professional dealings. When Samantha could no longer produce me at industry events and continued providing inconsistent explanations about my whereabouts, several key clients began questioning whether they could trust someone who appeared to be dishonest about such a fundamental aspect of her personal life. Monica, who ran a successful interior design business and had been planning to commission me for custom furniture pieces for several high-end client projects, abruptly canceled all discussions about potential collaborations when she realized the extent to which Samantha had been misleading everyone about our relationship's seriousness and her intentions toward me. The loss of Monica's business referrals was significant because she had connections throughout Portland's affluent community and could have provided steady income through custom furniture commissions, but more importantly, her withdrawal of support sent a clear message to their shared social circle about Samantha's character and trustworthiness. The pharmaceutical sales industry relied heavily on relationship building and personal trust, and Samantha's reputation began suffering as word spread through professional networks about her deceptive behavior regarding her personal life and her manipulative treatment of someone who had been nothing but supportive and loyal to her career aspirations. Several medical practices that had been considering increasing their pharmaceutical orders through Samantha began working with other sales representatives, citing concerns about her reliability and integrity after witnessing the inconsistencies in her personal story and her inability to maintain stable relationships. Her sales performance declined noticeably as healthcare professionals grew uncomfortable with someone they perceived as dishonest and manipulative, preferring to work with pharmaceutical representatives who demonstrated consistency and authenticity in all aspects of their lives. The Portland medical community was close-knit, and my genuine personality and respectful interactions with healthcare professionals had actually enhanced Samantha's reputation over the past 2 years, making my absence a topic of concerned conversation that reflected poorly on her character and judgment. Samantha's social circle continued to distance themselves as they pieced together that she had been using me while actively seeking someone better, with several friends expressing disgust at her calculated approach to relationships and her willingness to deceive people who trusted her. The book club that Monica organized became increasingly uncomfortable with Samantha's presence, as members realized they had witnessed her planning to discard someone who had been genuinely committed to building a future with her, and they began questioning whether they wanted to associate with someone capable of such calculated manipulation and emotional dishonesty. Her attempts to network with successful men through Monica's connections were quietly but effectively blocked as the interior design business owner realized that facilitating romantic opportunities for someone who had treated me so callously would reflect poorly on her own judgment and professional reputation. The pharmaceutical company that employed Samantha began receiving subtle feedback from healthcare providers about concerns regarding her character and reliability, leading to awkward conversations with her sales manager about the importance of maintaining professional relationships and personal integrity. Samantha found herself increasingly isolated both socially and professionally as people who had once respected her began viewing her as someone who couldn't be trusted with important relationships and who approached personal connections with a calculating mindset that made others uncomfortable. I threw myself into my woodworking business with renewed focus and energy, channeling the emotional turmoil from discovering Samantha's betrayal into creating an innovative line of sustainable furniture that quickly gained attention from Portland's environmentally conscious community. The workshop that had always been my refuge became the foundation for expanding my artistic vision, and I began experimenting with reclaimed materials and eco-friendly finishes that reflected my commitment to environmental responsibility and authentic craftsmanship. My work caught the attention of Lauren Martinez, an environmental journalist who had been documenting local artisans committed to sustainability practices for a series of articles about Portland's growing green economy and the craftspeople who were leading the movement toward more responsible manufacturing. Lauren's initial visit to my workshop was purely professional, but her genuine fascination with my creative process and her deep understanding of environmental issues created an immediate connection that felt entirely different from anything I had experienced with Samantha. She spent hours interviewing me about my techniques for sourcing reclaimed wood, my methods for creating non-toxic finishes, and my philosophy about creating furniture that would last for generations rather than contributing to the disposable culture that dominated modern manufacturing. Lauren's questions revealed her genuine interest in understanding not just what I did, but why I approached my work with such dedication to environmental principles, and her appreciation for the craft and care that went into each piece made me remember why I had fallen in love with woodworking in the first place. As Lauren documented my workshop and creative process for her articles, we developed a friendship based on shared values about environmental responsibility, authentic living, and the importance of supporting local artisans who prioritized quality and sustainability over profit margins and mass production. The contrast between Lauren's genuine engagement with my work and Samantha's dismissive attitude toward my career became increasingly stark as I realized that Lauren saw my craftsmanship as valuable and meaningful rather than as a barrier to social advancement or financial security. Lauren's interviews with me revealed my passion for creating beautiful, functional pieces that would age gracefully and serve families for decades, and she understood that true craftsmanship represented a rejection of the throwaway culture that was destroying both communities and the environment. Our conversations extended far beyond the formal interview process as we discovered shared interests in hiking, environmental activism, and supporting local businesses that prioritized ethical practices over maximum profit, creating a foundation for friendship that felt genuine and mutually enriching. Lauren's work documenting sustainable artisans had given her deep appreciation for people who chose meaningful work over lucrative careers, and she understood that my decision to pursue woodworking represented a commitment to values rather than a lack of ambition or financial sophistication. The articles Lauren wrote about my work and workshop brought new clients who specifically sought out furniture created with environmental consciousness and artistic integrity, generating more business than I had ever experienced while validating that there was substantial demand for truly sustainable craftsmanship. Through Lauren's documentation of my work, I began to see my craft through fresh eyes and remembered the satisfaction that came from creating something beautiful and lasting with my own hands, something that would serve a family for generations rather than ending up in a landfill within a few years. The success of Lauren's articles about local artisans led to additional opportunities for collaboration, and I found myself part of a community of craftspeople and environmental advocates who valued authentic work and genuine relationships over status-seeking and financial manipulation. The workshops and events that Lauren organized brought together like-minded individuals who shared my commitment to sustainable living and meaningful work, creating connections that felt genuine and supportive rather than transactional or superficial. I realized that while Samantha had been ashamed of my choice to work with my hands and create beautiful objects, Lauren and her community of environmental advocates viewed craftsmanship as noble work that contributed something valuable to the world while honoring traditional skills and sustainable practices. When Samantha realized that I had moved on completely and built a thriving business without her involvement, she launched a desperate campaign to win me back, claiming that she had been testing our relationship's strength and that my immediate departure had proven I didn't truly love her enough to fight for what we had together. She began showing up at my workshop unannounced with elaborate apologies and promises to change her priorities, insisting that she had never meant the things she said to her book club and that her friends had misunderstood her concerns about our future planning. Her explanations became increasingly creative and contradictory as she attempted to reframe her calculated discussion about replacing me as evidence of her commitment to making our relationship work better, claiming that she had been seeking advice about how to support my career ambitions and help me achieve greater financial success. The desperation in her voice was unmistakable as she tried to convince me that everything I had overheard had been taken out of context and that her real intention had been to figure out how to build a stronger foundation for our relationship that would allow both of us to achieve our goals together. My interactions with Lauren had shown me what genuine partnership looked like, where both people valued each other's work and supported each other's authentic interests without trying to change or manipulate the other person into becoming someone different. The contrast between Samantha's transactional approach to relationships and Lauren's authentic engagement with my values and career made it impossible for me to consider returning to someone who had viewed me as a temporary placeholder while she searched for better options. Samantha's friends, who had witnessed her casual discussion about discarding me for someone more financially advantageous, refused to support her reconciliation efforts, and several of them actively warned me about her pattern of using people while keeping her options open for more attractive opportunities. Monica, who had been planning to facilitate introductions between Samantha and successful men from her network, now felt embarrassed about having participated in Samantha's manipulative scheme and made it clear that she would not provide any assistance with romantic reconciliation. Her book club members had grown increasingly uncomfortable with Samantha's presence after realizing the extent of her deception about our relationship, and several of them had begun questioning whether they wanted to associate with someone who could maintain such elaborate pretenses while planning to discard someone who had been genuinely committed to building a future together. The pharmaceutical sales community continued to distance themselves from Samantha as word spread about her manipulative treatment of personal relationships and her willingness to deceive people who trusted her, making it clear that her reputation for dishonesty was affecting her professional standing as well as her social connections. Samantha's attempts to win me back became more frantic as she realized that I was not playing games or trying to make her jealous, but had genuinely moved on to building a life with people who shared my values and appreciated my authentic contributions to the community. She offered to quit her pharmaceutical sales job and support my woodworking business, promising to become the supportive partner she should have been all along, but her offers felt hollow and desperate rather than genuine or sustainable. The timing of her sudden interest in supporting my career coincided suspiciously with her declining professional prospects and social isolation, suggesting that her renewed appreciation for our relationship was motivated more by necessity than by authentic affection or respect for who I was as a person. Her promises to change felt meaningless because they were based on external circumstances rather than any genuine understanding of how her previous behavior had been manipulative and hurtful, and she continued to frame the situation as a misunderstanding rather than acknowledging the calculated nature of her treatment of our relationship. I realized that Samantha's desperation to reconcile had nothing to do with missing me as a person and everything to do with losing the stability and support system that I had provided while she searched for someone better, and her current situation had made her realize that finding a suitable replacement was more difficult than she had anticipated. Monica discovered through mutual connections that Samantha had been actively dating other men while maintaining her relationship with me, using dating apps and professional networking events to find upgrade opportunities while presenting herself as single and available to potential suitors who met her financial and social requirements. This revelation spread quickly through their professional and social networks, completely destroying Samantha's reputation as someone trustworthy in both business and personal relationships since people realized she had been living a double life while deceiving everyone about her commitment and integrity. The evidence of Samantha's dating activities came to light when one of Monica's interior design clients mentioned meeting Samantha on a dating app during the same period when she had been posting couple photos with me on social media and telling her pharmaceutical colleagues that we were planning to move in together permanently. Monica felt personally betrayed because she had been offering relationship advice to someone who had been actively undermining her own relationship while maintaining elaborate pretenses about commitment and future planning, and she realized that Samantha had been using their friendship to gain access to successful men in her professional network. The Portland business community was relatively small and interconnected, and word of Samantha's deceptive behavior spread quickly through professional networks as people shared stories about her manipulative approach to both romantic and business relationships. Blake learned about Samantha's dating activities from Lauren, who had encountered the information while interviewing subjects for her environmental articles and had been told about Samantha's reputation for dishonesty by several members of the sustainable business community who had heard about her treatment of our relationship. Lauren's journalistic background had given her access to a wide network of professionals who were aware of Samantha's manipulative behavior, and several of them had specifically mentioned her as an example of someone who approached relationships transactionally rather than authentically. The revelation that Samantha had been actively seeking my replacement while maintaining our relationship confirmed everything I had suspected about her true intentions and validated my decision to leave immediately rather than attempting to work through what I had initially believed might be temporary doubts about our future. Her pattern of deception extended far beyond our relationship, as people began sharing stories about her manipulative behavior in professional settings where she had used personal relationships to advance her pharmaceutical sales career while showing little genuine interest in the healthcare professionals she claimed to serve. The Portland artisan community rallied around me when they learned about Samantha's treatment of our relationship, generating numerous commissions and collaborative opportunities that established my workshop as a respected local business within the sustainable craftsmanship movement. Environmental advocates and sustainable business owners who had worked with Lauren began specifically seeking out my furniture services as a way of supporting someone who had been mistreated by someone with values that contradicted everything they stood for regarding authentic relationships and ethical business practices. The contrast between the genuine support I received from Portland's environmental and artisan communities and the transactional relationships that Samantha had cultivated became increasingly apparent as my business grew through word-of-mouth recommendations from people who valued integrity and authentic craftsmanship. Monica's interior design business began referring clients to my workshop as she realized that my commitment to sustainable practices and authentic craftsmanship aligned perfectly with her own values and those of her environmentally conscious clientele who sought furniture created with genuine care and environmental responsibility. The pharmaceutical sales industry's tight-knit nature meant that Samantha's reputation for dishonesty and manipulation quickly became known throughout the regional medical community, making it difficult for her to maintain the professional relationships that were essential for success in her chosen career path. My partnership with Lauren evolved naturally into both a romantic relationship and a professional collaboration that represented everything I had hoped to find with someone who truly understood and valued the work I was passionate about creating. Lauren's documentation of sustainable artisan practices perfectly complemented my custom furniture business, with her articles featuring environmentally conscious clients and my workshop creating custom pieces for the families and businesses that her environmental journalism highlighted as leaders in sustainable living practices. We began working together on projects that combined her storytelling abilities with my craftsmanship, creating educational content about sustainable living that helped Portland residents understand the environmental impact of their purchasing decisions and the importance of supporting local artisans committed to responsible manufacturing practices. Our relationship developed organically through shared values and mutual respect rather than through strategic calculations about financial advantage or social status, creating a foundation of trust and genuine partnership that felt entirely different from the transactional dynamic I had experienced with Samantha. Lauren appreciated my dedication to environmental responsibility and viewed my choice to create lasting, beautiful furniture as a meaningful contribution to reducing waste and supporting sustainable local economy, rather than seeing my career as a limitation or barrier to achieving higher social status. The success of our collaborative projects attracted attention from environmental organizations and sustainable business networks throughout the Pacific Northwest, generating opportunities for both of us to expand our work while maintaining our commitment to authentic practices and ethical business relationships. Meanwhile, Samantha lost her pharmaceutical sales position when her professional relationships deteriorated due to her reputation for dishonesty and manipulation, as healthcare providers became uncomfortable working with someone whose personal conduct raised questions about her integrity and reliability in professional settings. The medical community had grown to distrust her after learning about her deceptive approach to personal relationships, and several major clients requested that her pharmaceutical company assign different representatives to handle their accounts because they no longer felt confident in her character or judgment. Her former colleagues at the pharmaceutical company began distancing themselves from her as word spread about her manipulative behavior, and her sales manager ultimately decided that her damaged reputation was affecting the company's relationships with important healthcare providers in the Portland area. Samantha eventually moved to Sacramento to start over in a different market where her reputation for dishonesty and relationship manipulation was not yet known, but her former friends maintained contact with Lauren and me, celebrating our authentic partnership and expressing relief that I had found someone who truly appreciated my values and contributions. The book club that Monica organized continued to meet, but without Samantha's presence, as the members had unanimously agreed that they were uncomfortable associating with someone who had demonstrated such calculated manipulation and dishonesty about fundamental aspects of her personal life. My workshop became a community hub for sustainable craftsmanship education, where Lauren and I hosted events that brought together environmentally conscious families, local artisans, and sustainable business owners who shared our commitment to authentic living and responsible consumption practices. Lauren's journalism evolved to focus specifically on environmental stewardship and the individuals who were making meaningful contributions to sustainable living in the Pacific Northwest, representing the values-based life I had always wanted but couldn't achieve with someone who viewed relationships as opportunities for personal advancement rather than genuine partnerships. Our home, filled with furniture I had created and surrounded by the community of environmentally conscious friends we had built together, represented the authentic life I had dreamed of sharing with someone who truly understood and valued the same principles that guided my work and personal choices.